The overlooked species. The grand chambers of the Galactic Assembly stretched across 3 kilometers of crystallized space, floating in the neutral zone between 1,000 star systems. Representatives from 217 species gathered, here every solar cycle, their forms ranging from the gaseous clouds of Nethys to the silicon-based Craxi. Yet when Earth's application for membership arrived in the year 2387, it barely warranted a footnote in the Assembly's vast archives. Commander Xelox of the Xenari Empire, the dominant military force in the known galaxy, reviewed humanity's file with barely concealed amusement. His forearms moved in dismissive patterns as he addressed the council. Another carbon-based species from a single planet? Their technology is 3 centuries behind our weakest members. They've barely mastered fusion power while we harness the energy of black holes. Their fastest ships would take months to cross distances we cover in hours. I see no reason to grant them anything more than observer status. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be allowed to observe, but not participate. They could trade in designated zones but not expand beyond their solar system without permission. They were, in the grand scheme of galactic politics, utterly irrelevant. Ambassador Sarah Chen accepted the decision with a polite smile that none of the alien species could quite interpret. "We understand and accept the Assembly's wisdom," she said, her voice carrying through the universal translator. "We look forward to learning from all of you." For 5 years, humanity remained quiet. Their ambassador attended every meeting, taking careful notes but never speaking unless directly addressed. Their traders stuck to the permitted zones, exchanging Earth's limited resources for outdated technology that other species considered worthless. The galaxy moved on, dealing with territorial disputes, resource allocation, and the constant threat of the Vorath Collective, a hostile species from beyond the galactic rim that had been testing defenses for decades. What the Assembly didn't notice was that humanity wasn't just observing. They were studying. Every piece of discarded technology was reverse-engineered. Every overheard conversation was analyzed. Every political alliance was mapped. And most importantly, every weakness was catalogued. While the great powers focused on each other, human ships quietly established research stations in the dead zones of space, areas considered worthless due to radiation, gravitational anomalies, or simple lack of resources. The Xenari Empire's long-range sensors occasionally detected these stations, but dismissed them as desperate attempts by a primitive species to find somewhere, anywhere, to expand. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in Research Station 7, located in the heart of the Crimson Nebula, a region so radioactive that most species couldn't survive there even with their best shielding. Humans, however, had evolved on a planet with a surprisingly robust magnetic field and had developed an unusual resistance to radiation. It wasn't immunity, but it was enough to work in places others couldn't. Project Nexus is proceeding on schedule. Webb reported to Earth Command through quantum-encrypted channels. We've successfully integrated Xenari shield technology with Craxi computational systems and Nether cloud consciousness transfer protocols. The fusion is unprecedented. Earth Command's response was swift. Continue observation protocols. Do not reveal capabilities until authorization is given. The authorization came sooner than expected, but not from Earth Command. The Vorath Collective launched their invasion on a scale nobody had anticipated. Not a probing attack or a border skirmish, but a full-scale assault with thousands of ships pouring through rifts in space-time itself. The Xenari Empire's mighty fleets, for all their black hole-powered weapons and superior technology, were overwhelmed within hours. The Craxi computational networks were corrupted by Vorath viral codes. The clouds of Nethys were dispersed by targeted gravitational weapons. The Assembly convened an emergency session, panic evident in every gesture, color change, and pheromone emission. Commander Xelox, his proud bearing now hunched with defeat, delivered the grim report. "We've lost 30 systems in 3 days. Our weapons are ineffective. Our shields can't adapt to their phase-shifting attacks. At this rate, the galaxy will fall within a solar month." It was then that Ambassador Chen stood for the first time without being asked to speak. "Humanity requests permission to assist in the defense effort." The chamber erupted in bitter laughter. Several species didn't have the physical ability to laugh, but their translator outputs conveyed the same dismissive amusement. "This is not the time for misguided heroism from primitives," Zalox snarled. "You have what, a dozen obsolete frigates? The Vorath destroyed 1,000 of our dreadnoughts in the first hour." Chen's smile remained steady. "We have been preparing for this possibility. We would like to demonstrate our capabilities. Give us one Vorath-occupied system, any system you've already written off as lost. If we fail, humanity will withdraw all presence from galactic space. If we succeed, we ask only for full membership in the assembly." The vote was taken more out of desperate humor than any real hope. The system chosen was Kepler 442, a former mining colony with 3 inhabited planets now fully under Vorath control. The assembly gave humanity 72 hours before they would implement their final desperate strategy, detonating the galactic core to deny the Vorath their prize, even if it meant the death of all civilization. 47 hours later, the impossible happened. Kepler 442 was free. The sensor data made no sense. The Zanari's best analysts couldn't understand what they were seeing. 12 human ships, none larger than a light cruiser, had somehow defeated a Vorath fleet of over 300 vessels. There were no debris fields from human ships, no signs of massive weapons discharge, no evidence of the kinds of battles the galaxy had grown accustomed to. Ambassador Chen addressed the stunned assembly. "We would like to offer our assistance with the remaining Vorath forces. However, we have conditions." Zalox's forearms trembled with rage and confusion. "You dare make demands? How did you accomplish this? What weapons did you use?" "No weapons, Commander. We talked to them." The statement hung in the processed atmosphere of the chamber, like a physical presence. Several species translators requested clarification, certain there had been an error. Chen continued, her voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. "The Vorath aren't invaders, they're refugees. Their dimension is collapsing and they're desperate. Their phase shifting isn't an attack technique, it's their natural state of existence bleeding through. What you interpret as viral codes are actually attempts at communication that your systems can't process." The human ambassador gestured and a hologram appeared, showing human ships surrounded by Vorath vessels, but instead of weapons fire, there were coordinated light patterns, mathematical sequences, and quantum field fluctuations. "We recognize the patterns because we've been studying something similar in our research stations. The radiation in those dead zones isn't random. It's the background noise of dimensional collapse. We've been learning to communicate with it for 5 years, thinking it was just an interesting scientific phenomenon. When the Vorath arrived, we recognized the similarity immediately." The awakening fear. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly, but Chen wasn't finished. As she spoke, human ships began appearing throughout the galaxy, not dozens, but thousands. They emerged from the dead zones, from inside radiation, fields from the hearts of nebulae where no life should exist. "You assumed we were primitive because we showed you what you expected to see," Chen explained, her polite smile never wavering. "You judged us by the technology we displayed, not by what we could create. While you fought over resources and territory, we made friends with the spaces you ignored. While you built weapons to destroy, we built bridges to understand." Commander Zelox's voice was barely a whisper through his translator. "How many ships do you have?" "Ships?" Chen tilted her head. "Commander, you're still not understanding. We don't just have ships, we have allies. The radiation beings you've been avoiding in the dead zones, they're sentient. The quantum fluctuations in collapsed stars, that's a form of communication. The virus codes the Vorath use? It's their poetry, their art, their desperate plea for help." The main viewing screen of the assembly chamber lit up with incoming transmissions. Human vessels were appearing in every Vorath-occupied system, but they weren't fighting. They were creating stable dimensional bridges, allowing the Vorath to evacuate their dying dimension in an orderly fashion, instead of a panicked invasion. Dr. Marcus Webb appeared via hologram from Research Station 7. Behind him, human scientists worked alongside beings of pure energy, silicon-based Craxi, and now, phase-shifting Vorath. Project Nexus was never about weapons, he explained. It was about creating a universal translation protocol that works not just for language, but for existence itself. We can now communicate with any form of consciousness, whether it's carbon-based, energy-based, silicon-based, or dimensional. The fear that began creeping through the assembly wasn't fear of human weapons or military might. It was something far more profound. They realized that while they had been playing a game of galactic dominance, humanity had been changing the rules entirely. A Zanari tactical analyst voiced what everyone was thinking. If humans can communicate with and befriend any form of consciousness, if they can survive in environments we consider death zones, if they can solve conflicts we only know how to fight, then they don't need weapons to be the most powerful species in the galaxy. Chen nodded slowly. We learned something from our history on Earth. The most feared predator isn't the one with the sharpest teeth or the strongest muscles. It's the one that can adapt, cooperate, and turn enemies into allies. We watched you all for 5 years, not to find your weaknesses to exploit, but to understand how to help when the time came. The Vorath situation was resolved within days. Instead of a galaxy-ending war, it became the largest refugee resettlement in known history. The phase-shifting beings were given homes in the dead zones, where their dimensional instability actually helped stabilize dangerous radiation fields. In return, they shared technology that allowed travel between dimensions, opening up infinite new frontiers. But the true demonstration of human capability came with what happened next. Every species that had dismissed humanity suddenly found human diplomats at their doors, not with threats, but with solutions to problems they'd been struggling with for centuries. The Craxi silicon-based computers that kept crashing from organic contamination? Humans had developed a hybrid organic silicon interface that prevented the issue entirely. They'd created it while trying to communicate with Earth's deep-sea volcanic, vent organisms. The clouds of Nethys who couldn't interact with solid matter? Humans had designed containment fields that allowed them to manipulate physical objects while maintaining their gaseous state. It was a byproduct of trying to shake hands with their ambassador. The Zanari Empire's black hole generators that required constant maintenance. Humans had figured out how to communicate with the quantum consciousness that existed at the event horizon, convincing it to self-regulate the energy output. Within a solar month, humanity had gone from ignored observers to the most sought-after mediators, scientists, and problem-solvers in the galaxy. But with that recognition came fear. Late one night, Commander Zelox found himself in a private meeting with Ambassador Chen. His forearms were clasped in a gesture of respect he'd never shown to a human before. "I need to know," he said quietly. "If humanity had chosen conquest, instead of cooperation, could you have defeated us all?" Chen was quiet for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. "Commander, you're still asking the wrong questions. It's not about whether we could defeat you. It's about why we chose not to try. Every species in this galaxy has something unique to offer. The Zanari have unmatched military discipline. The Craxi process information in ways organic minds never could. The clouds of Nethys exist in states of matter we're only beginning to understand." She paused, looking out at the stars visible through the chamber's transparent walls. "Humanity's strength isn't in our weapons or our technology. It's in our ability to see potential where others see problems. You feared the Vorath because they were different. We saw them as teachers who could show us how to exist in multiple dimensions. You avoided the dead zones because they were dangerous. We saw them as homes for beings who thrived in those conditions." Zelox's translator struggled with his next words. "Then what makes you fearsome? Why do I feel dread when I think about humanity's power?" "Because," Chen said softly, "you've realized that in a galaxy where everyone built weapons to defend against each other, we built bridges to connect everyone. And in doing so, we became the one species that no one can afford to fight. Not because we're strong, but because we've made ourselves essential. Every friend we make, every problem we solve, every connection we build makes us harder to oppose." She turned to face him directly. "You fear us because we change the definition of power itself, and deep down, You know that even if every species in the galaxy united against humanity, you'd also be fighting the radiation beings, the dimensional refugees, the quantum consciousnesses, and every other form of life we've befriended in the places you never thought to look. The commander left that meeting with a new understanding. Humanity wasn't feared because they were conquerors. They were feared because they had made conquest obsolete. In a galaxy that had always operated on the principle of might makes right, humans had introduced something far more powerful. The idea that cooperation could achieve what conflict never could. The transformation of the galaxy was swift and irreversible. Trade routes now ran through previously uninhabitable dead zones, managed by radiation beings who could survive there naturally. Dimensional technology from the Vorath opened up infinite new resources, ending scarcity-based conflicts. Quantum consciousnesses helped solve computational problems that had plagued civilizations for millennia. At the center of it all was humanity, not ruling but orchestrating, not commanding but conducting a symphony of species that had never imagined they could work together. The fear remained, but it had evolved into something more complex. A mixture of respect, awe, and the unsettling realization that humanity had won a game nobody else knew they were playing. In the end, Earth's true weapon wasn't hidden fleets or secret technology. It was the simple, terrifying ability to look at the unknown and see not a threat to be destroyed, but a friend to be made. And in a galaxy full of species who had spent millennia preparing for war, nothing was more fearsome than a species that had prepared for peace. The story of humanity's rise spread throughout the galaxy, told in different languages, different mediums, and different contexts, but always with the same underlying message. The most feared species in the galaxy didn't conquer through strength. They conquered by making conquest unnecessary. And that perhaps was the most human thing of all.